President Bola Tinubu says his administration has been greatly supported by the National Assembly since he assumed office 19 months ago. The president stated this when he received the leadership of the National Assembly and former principal officers of the National Assembly at his residence in Ikoyi in Lagos State on New Year's Day. Tinubu told his visitors that he is determined to take Nigeria to the promised land and acknowledged the encouragement he has received from the federal lawmakers led by the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio.
We are determined, we are capable, we are free, and we are resolute, and we will be there. We will take Nigeria to that promised land with you. It's not an easy job, yes. I could hear that what the Senate President mentioned as the sweetest tree that takes the high frequency and high number of stones. Yes, the truth is, I asked for this job. You all work hard to give it to me, and I must do it.
This journey of reforming Nigeria, in all aspects, you are not alone. The National Assembly is with you. We will stand by you to ensure that we don't do the same thing over and expect a different result. Nigeria needs transformation, and under you, you are determined to do so. We are in essence saying that at the end of the day, this day has capped it all by giving you an award as Man of the Year. Man of the Year 2024 simply indicates that you are that man that had taken the very, very hard decisions that Nigeria needed to take many years before you became president.
Well, let's have this conversation on the president's speech, especially on the economic indicators he highlighted with capital market expert Professor Uwaleke. Welcome to Newsnight, and thanks for joining us. And Happy New Year as well. Thanks for spending some of your New Year with us.
I'm very delighted to be the first guest on Newsnight
in 2025.
Yes.
Lovely. Now let's talk about the president's speech. He painted a picture of economic optimism, right? Even listening to the vice presidents, they're saying, look, in a couple months, Nigerians will begin to enjoy these reforms. He cited reduced fuel prices, a stronger naira. However, for many Nigerians, the cost of living crisis is still unbearable.
That's correct.
But we need hope. It's the first day of 2025. Do you believe some of these, no matter how little, these macroeconomic gains will translate into real relief for Nigerians this year?
Yeah, first and foremost, he rightly acknowledged that 2024 was a difficult year. Was a year that posed a lot of challenges to many Nigerians. Inflation rate, was elevated and is still elevated in 2024. And in 2024 too, we saw a lot of businesses groaning against the backdrop of high interest rate environment and of course, high cost of accessing funds, high cost of power, high cost of energy, generally. So businesses, really took the hit to the point where we hear that, accumulated inventory is in the region of 1.2 billion naira. So yes, as I said earlier on, he acknowledged that fact. But I share in his optimism that the economy is gradually turning the corner and things will get better in 2025. And that's again based on some of the signs we are beginning to see, which some of them he mentioned in his speech. First and foremost, this is the first time, to the best of my knowledge, in many years we have had a Christmas without fuel queues. At least I can speak for Abuja. Fuel queues and at least the fuel was available. And we're also beginning to see gradual moderation in the fuel, pump price of fuel.
Prices.
Yes, I just finished watching a video, a press interview, granted by the TUC president, Festus, and his NLC counterpart, Ajero, in which they, confirmed after a tour of the Port Harcourt refinery that that refinery is now up and running. So if we have the Port Harcourt refinery, come alive once more, the old one and the new one, and we have also reading about the Warri refinery, also beginning to get some life. So one expects that in the coming months, okay, all of that, including the fact that Dangote refinery is also there, all of that should rub off positively, and we want to begin to see, real reduction in the pump price of fuel. So for me, that's a positive sign. And of course, you can also not waive or dismiss the issue of the exchange rate. The exchange rate has closed at, I think, around 1,535 official. And you can say that for some time, for some months, we saw some level of stability in the exchange rate. And that may not also be unconnected with the fact that we've also seen accretion to foreign reserves, external reserves to have grown. In January 2024, external reserves was around $33 billion. Today is over $40 billion. So that's an improvement. Of course, the benefits of external reserves. One is a central bank, can use that, as an arsenal to intervene at any time. That's why I don't believe those who say that the exchange rate will get above 2,000 by the year, this year.
This year.
Yes, and that's on the back of, the kind of reserves that the central bank has. So if you look at the reserves, you look at the, where the exchange rate, and you also look at other indicators. Again, the trade surplus, for 3 consecutive months, positive, trade surplus. Yes, some may argue it's more because imports reduced, but what the data says, yes, we had, trade, surpluses. And of course, you also look at the GDP. GDP numbers, first quarter 2.98% GDP growth rate, second quarter 3.19%, and then third quarter of 2024 GDP growth was 3.46. So we also had consistent, though marginal, but increase in GDP over that period. Even though the president didn't mention that, but that for me is also something
an indication that we're moving in the right direction.
And for me, again, more importantly for me, look at the stock market. The stock market is, the performance of the stock market is about the best, again, in the world. Whether you're looking at developed markets or even a developing market, the year-to-date return today ended at over 37%.
I was going to ask you, with this trillion-dollar economy that this administration strives to get to as their goal, what role do you envision the capital market playing when it comes to this, and what sort of reforms are necessary to align with that? Okay,
yes, absolutely. And we're even beginning to see, I would say the Monetary Authority too has also taken steps that for me in that direction by requiring banks to recapitalize. So 2024 witnessed a lot of, if you like, primary market activity on the part of banks that came to the market to issue shares. So I'm sure you read Access Bank, one of the first, not the first actually, to meet the 500 billion. Yeah. So all of that are all geared towards, putting the banks in a position to support the $1 trillion economy, and I'm happy the funds, much of that, is coming through the market. But again, I would like to see a lot more trigger, come from the government side, incentivizing listing of many more companies, on the exchange. As I speak to you, we have just about 153 companies, listed on the exchange. South Africa has 274 on the Johannesburg stock exchange. And if you look at our market cap to GDP is less than 20%. In South Africa, it's over 300%, because their equities market cap alone is over 300. Okay, so close to $1 trillion. So I think the government has a lot of role to play, and part of what the government can do is also to channel privatization efforts through the market. We are all expecting that NNPC Limited, at some point, possibly this year, should list part of its shares on the exchange. When you now find more companies being listed, that will go a long way to help achieve that $1 trillion. Or, of course, help the market to contribute more to the economy, and then we achieve $1 trillion economy.
That's an
target.
Interesting take. And the whole of 2024, I think Nigeria was trying to tame inflation. We had central bank increasing interest rates, and the president said, look, we're committed to reducing inflation from the 34.6%, he said, to 15%.
Yes.
Obviously, through increase in food production, very important. More manufacturing of essential drugs. How do you see this playing out? This is very important.
Very important.
And I think the president and his team are really focused on taming this inflation.
Oh, yes.
How do we see this playing out? We're expecting another MPC by the end of this month.
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
Yes. In fact, you can say that again. Reducing inflation, the high level of inflation is very critical to any reforms that the government is doing, because that is what touches the people. When people hear GDP is growing, they tell you, what about it? Okay, they are not feeling it because they can't afford food. So food is very important. And if you also look at the inflation figure we have today, the pressure point is food.
Yes.
Food inflation is at 40%. Average inflation, that's the headline inflation, okay, 34.6. But food is 40. And in some states in this country, such as Sokoto, food inflation is as high as 51, 52%. So it's really a problem. And I'm happy that the president too has recognized that, which is also why he's talking about, assisting. The federal government, is prepared to assist in the area of agriculture. I just you watched the clip where he was telling the states that a lot of the efforts, as far as food security is concerned, okay, a lot of efforts will be played by the subnationals, particularly the state governors, because the states are the ones that own land. Okay, so that has been recognized. So whatever that needs to be done to bring down food, prices, has to be done. You see, again, for me, it's not just about the numbers. Even talking about the numbers, some have said 15% is not attainable. I think, yes, it may appear ambitious, but I also think that it's possible. It's possible because when we talk about inflation, we are simply saying that prices will simply be increasing, but at a slower rate. It doesn't mean that prices will no longer increase. Okay, so that's why I say 15% is, possible, even though it appears, difficult. Ambitious. But what we really need to say in this country is even a situation in which we have, if you like, call it deflation. We want to see a situation in which tomorrow, for example, a bag of rice is no longer 120, but now 50. Okay, so we want to see prices really come down. And that is where, when the common man will begin to feel it. Yes. But as long as prices keep rising, even though at a slower pace, okay, the common man will still be feeling it. But I want to, say I'm optimistic that inflation will moderate, in 2025. And of course, if it's moderating, you should expect that the central bank will now be in a position to, not only pause interest rate hikes, but even, start, an accommodative monetary policy or easing monetary policy. In other words, reducing monetary policy rate in particular, which is why access to credit is very difficult. Which is also why part of what the president said, in recognition of the high interest rate environment, that the government plans to launch, a national credit guarantee company. Okay, for me, that's very critical. The MSMEs need access to credit. Okay, and what I'm saying is very critical is if I look at the experience of other countries, South Korea, for example, India started it in 2014, the national credit company, and Kenya started in 2020 and recently converted their credit agency to a company. So I think all of that will go a long way to improve access to credit, and then of course bring down the inflation rates. That's
a good place to leave it. Unfortunately, we don't have much time. I wanted us to go into more of this national credit guarantee company that I said to expand credit access and also drive growth. Thank you so much, Professor Uche Uwaleke, who is President, Capital Market Academics of Nigeria, for joining us on Newsnight.